Grab a cup of tea or listen as you go, ladies. This is your hour with Dr. Zoe, your life and relationship coach. With encouragement, on-point insight, inspiring guests, health tips, and advice, Dr. Zoe helps busy women keep their mind in the game by redefining your superwoman. You're listening to The Dr. Zoe Show.
Hi, you're listening to The Dr. Zoe Show, Redefining Your Superwoman. I'm Dr. Zoe, and I believe that every woman has a superpower, and my passion is to help you find it, embrace it, and share it with the world. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a motivational speaker, a life and relationship coach, and I have some other roles like mama and wife, and I can't think of any others right now. But today, our topic is how to raise a maverick, raising kids with work ethic, grit, and empathy. I have my guest, Emily Goodreau, and she is the host of How to Raise a Maverick, and she talks all about raising phenomenal kids, and that's what we're going to talk about today. It's a little longer interview, so I'm going to get right into my Superwoman win and my Superwoman fail. So my win this week is there's a journalist who is writing a book about women over 40 who throw it down in the gym, lift weights, free weights, whoop, whoop. So I don't know how many of you know that about me, but I like to lift. I have some muscles. And anyway, she's going to be featuring me along with some other women over 40 in this book. And that's exciting. I had a fun interview with her, and I look forward to that coming out. It's another aspect of my life that, really it's my therapy. It's totally my therapy, lifting weights and working out and competing. So that's my win. So my fail, oh my gosh, my fail is that I was a guest. I was kind of a guest on the podcast Mama Bears Dares. I hope I'm saying that right. Mama Bears Dares. Great podcast. Love it. And I think I will be on in the future if they do ask me again. But I was invited to be on. I had the interview with the host. And I had some issues with my laptop and getting on Skype. And so I'm like, I'm a podcast host. I can do this. I'll just hop on my Zoom account. We'll do the whole dealio. I'll send the file over to you and we'll be good. And she's like, cool. So we did it. My computer crashed. We talked for like an hour and a half. The whole thing was lost. I went back and forth with Zoom trying to get the recording. I feel like a total idiot. I'm having to email her and say, that hour and a half you spent interviewing me, it's all gone. Waste, total waste. My fault. Can't send you anything. And it's life. So that happened. That was definitely a Superwoman fail. I don't know how I could have fixed that, except maybe I need a new laptop. But yeah, life happens. We go on. So up next, how to raise kids with work ethic, grit, and empathy. We're going to be talking about raising mavericks. We're going to be talking about helicopter parenting, free-range parenting. Stay tuned. Welcome, Emily. I am so glad that you came to talk with us and my listeners today. We are going to be talking about how to raise a maverick. And you are a podcast host. You are a positive discipline coach, and you've got some programs out there. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Zoe, I am so stoked to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, wonderful. So, okay, first of all, I've been listening to your podcast, and I love the titles of your shows. Do you come up with those?
Well, thank you, first of all, because I'm super insecure about the titles of my shows.
It's really good.
Good. I do write them myself, and it's always it's really difficult to sum up a huge chunk of time and so much content to get to where people actually want to click on them. And you know what? Here's a little secret, insider secret. I change the titles every once in a while.
Really?
I go into the back end, and if I haven't gotten enough action on one of them, I change the title.
Oh, that is so cool. I didn't even know you could do that.
Secret sauce to all y'all podcasters and writers.
I'm totally going to be doing that. Okay, so I looked at your show and I was like, wait, does she do daily shows or almost daily?
That was an experiment. I thought, you as a podcaster, and a lot of our guests, I'm sure, are interested in that or produce content in some way. Mm-hmm. And it was literally, I do my own editing. It was literally taking me
Oh
a
my
week
gosh. Wow.
to get this stuff done. I was creating custom artwork for it, show notes. I mean, I was super proud of it. And I was like, what if I just jumped into the deep end and did it every single day? What would happen? Because a lot of the big podcasters out there do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it. And you know what? It was amazing. I could crank a podcast out so
Wow.
quick. My skills went up tenfold. It increased my numbers, but it didn't increase my listenership. So I had the same people. I have like some serious devoted listeners, bless their hearts, were listening to me every day and to all of them. But I'm more interested in getting more people. So
Right.
I just
regular
want
subscribers. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really fun and maddening, and it's over. And I only do it once a week now.
Oh, that's awesome. I was thinking, how in the world do you do anything else? Because
Yeah.
it does. It takes a lot to get one podcast out a week and every day. And you edit. Oh my gosh, my hands are like bowing to you right now.
Oh,
Amazing.
thank you. Thank you. It took like a year to get it. But I will say, I went from, I'd say like 30 to 45-minute podcast interviews to 5-minute kind of inspirational tips and clips.
And I love those. Those are so beneficial. I listen to other podcasts too, and I love those little 5 to 10 minute. And you get so much out of them. They're just like these little chunks of wisdom. Love it.
Yeah, which is kind of fun. And a lot of people really liked them. But it's all in the numbers. I'm a number person.
Yeah, very true. Awesome. Okay, so I'm really excited to talk about Raising a Maverick. I love that title, and we're going to talk about it. But before we get started, I've got to ask you your Superwoman win and your Superwoman fail.
Okay. My Superwoman win actually happened yesterday.
Oh, wow.
I have a 5-year-old, and well, let's backtrack even further. My childhood was full of trauma. I didn't have any real great examples on how to discipline kids, which is why I do what I do now, is not because I was born an expert. It's because I was like, I got to shape up. I know what I don't want to do, but I don't know what to do. I better dive deep into researching this. And I just made it my work. And my daughter, I'm very big into teaching her mechanical stuff. And I taught her how to unlock the doors and get out of the house if she needed to. Major pros and cons to that.
Yes.
So she's just has this newfound freedom, and she's unlocking the door and she's running over to the neighbors' houses, which is, it's fine. I just need to know where she's at. Right. So I get this panic. She's gone and I have no idea where to look for her.
Yeah.
And so she said she was going to sit on the front porch yesterday and wait for me before she went over to a neighbor's house. She didn't. She ran across the street. She's 5. It's a busy street. Not good. Anyways, the hothead mom in me almost went off. I was just firm and kind and strong. And I brought her back into the house and I said, I'm really angry right now. We need to both have some quiet time. So she went up into her room and I could hear her in my bathroom. So I snuck upstairs, and sure enough, that little devil was in my makeup.
Oh my God.
Which is sacred space.
Right. Yes. I have a 5-year-old girl, and what is it with the makeup? I'm like, you're 5. Why is your face all made up with my Mac?
Well, yeah, right. And it's fun. Like, it's art, and I can see it. But she was in there sneaking, and I was hiding around the corner. She tucked it under her shirt and was sneaking out.
Oh my gosh.
And she literally walked past me before I said, what are you doing? She's like, oh my gosh. And I said, well, where's the rest of it? Is it in your room? Did you stash it? Because she's a stasher. And she's like, no. Of course, there was more in her room. So she ran into the street. She did what she wasn't supposed to do. She got into my stuff, and then she lied to me.
Wow.
I was like, girlfriend, you are digging the deepest hole you can possibly dig. And this was kind of a turning point for me because I didn't lose it. She didn't understand that she was in trouble, and she wasn't responding the way I wanted her to. And instead of, normally I kind of like up the ante, and it keeps upping and upping until I run out of resources.
Or until you kind of get a response, but then
I've done damage, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And this time I actually have a toolbox of things to do to get her to cooperate without making her feel shame, without, punishing her or making her feel bad about herself.
Mm.
And it was a massive shift for me. And by the end of the day, I was just like, I love you. We've all made mistakes. We just need to find a solution. I know you want to use the makeup. I know you want to go see friends. How can we make this work for both of us? And let's find a solution. And by the end of the day, she's like, Mom, I'm really sorry. She went from, I hate myself. I did it on purpose. And I'm like, of course you did it on purpose. Hear these stories about what I did when I was your age. And I did it on purpose. You're not a bad person. You're a child. And I love you. And we just need to find a solution. No big deal. And her energy and who she was by the end of the night was so different. She was happy. She felt good. And I was like, oh, I don't have to make her feel bad to understand what she did wasn't going to work.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful.
That was kind of a paradigm shift for me. Usually I'm just like, I'm a yeller. When I get mad, true confessions here, which is why I do the work that I do, is to work through that,
Absolutely. And you know what? It takes so much work to do the opposite instead of going straight to your default, because it is so easy to shame them. It is so easy to yell. And I've definitely done both. But when you recognize that she was able to take ownership of that, and I mean, a really mature way for a 5-year-old, and she didn't have to feel bad about herself. That's beautiful. That's a huge mom win.
Yeah.
Superwoman
Yeah.
win.
And you know what? The biggest thing is I reached a point of getting really angry and I had more tools. Whereas in the past, I've reached a point of just being at my max. And let me just add, my dog ate a whole package of hot dog buns off the counter and the plastic that went with it and a whole roll of toilet paper.
Oh my God.
That's it. That was all kind of happening at the same time. And I didn't lose it. And I had more tools. I can't get the dog to cooperate, but I think I've got at least a small win with my daughter.
No, that's a great win because, getting the kid to cooperate is so much more important than getting the dog to cooperate. The dog doesn't ever have to go out into the real world and live and be productive. Right. It's always going to be taken care of by you. So, yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm going to farm it out. I'm going to hire somebody to raise my dog and train her for 2 weeks. I can't do that with my daughter.
No. Nope.
Or I don't want to. I'm sure
we are not. Well, yeah, but it's not the same. We are not replaceable in that way. So exactly. Great win. Thanks for sharing that. So let's hear your fail.
Okay. I am writing blog posts and content for my upcoming course, and writing is not my strong suit. And I'm really picky and I'm a perfectionist, and being weak at something and being a perfectionist is not a good combo.
True.
So I have been diving deep into the world of Facebook as a procrastination tool. And this whole thing about the immigration and the kids, I just am sucked into this. And I know that Facebook is not where I should be getting any information at all. And normally in my, frontal lobe, as opposed to my amygdala, I am a person who researches and then validates it, tries to understand it, and then takes action. I don't waller. I don't comment. I don't get upset. I'm just like, is this real? Is it not? Try to understand it. And if I feel passionate, what do I need to do about it? Or move on,
Right.
So I found an app that goes into my Google Chrome, and it is called, I'm going to pull it, Stay Focused. I allow myself 10 minutes a day. I just installed this today. That's why this is True Confessions. I can only spend 10 minutes a day on Facebook and Instagram.
And so what will it do?
It blocks it.
Are you serious?
It's a timer. You can set the timer, because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't block it. I actually work in there. I'm promoting my stuff and doing my work, and which is just a big excuse to get on there and like
go
scroll.
Down a sinkhole. Yeah.
Just brain. I was watching videos on the 100 squats a day challenge. I mean, come on. So it blocks it after 10 minutes. So I've got 10 minutes. So I get in there and I'm like, oh, hurry. Do I need to respond to something? You better do your work, because otherwise it's turning off.
What's it called again?
It is called Stay Focused.
I love it. I love it. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. Stay focused. Okay, so that's kind of a win. So your fail is you went down the sinkhole. You went down the sinkhole and you got all emotional about news that, may be fully true or not. But you turned it into a win because now you got this app that's going to give you some boundaries.
Yeah, it says, girl, you do not have time.
Right. I love that. I was just listening that the average American spends 2 hours a day on Facebook. 2 hours. That's most Americans. How crazy is that? Where are they getting this time?
Well, you know what? I hate to say it lately. That's been me because it's procrastination. I'm working and I reach a point where I'm like, this is kind of uncomfortable. And then I push this button and then that discomfort goes away.
That's true. That's true. It is entertainment and social media definitely has that pull. So thank you for sharing your Superwoman wins and your Superwoman fails. Awesome. I'm sure most women can relate. So let's dive into this.
Okay.
So like you said, you've made a life out of the whole concept of how to raise a maverick and raising kids with work ethic, grit, and empathy. And I love what you stand for. And I just want to share that with my audience today. So can you tell us what is a maverick? And first, wait, how many kids do you have?
I have 4 altogether. Really, I kind of have 6. Started taking care of my godkids after their mother passed away.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
In my mid-20s. Yeah. So I was kind of at a photo studio and I was kind of doing trying to break through in the photo arena. And I heard their guy, I don't know how to explain, but a family friend passed away and their dad was an alcoholic and they came into my life and I was kind of submersed into the world of raising teenagers or being the educator for the kids of things that hadn't been talked to them about. Yeah, so I have my godkids who are both just unbelievable rock stars. One's going to John Hopkins right now, and the other one, awesome. Yeah, he's in the Air Force and has top security clearance and speaks Russian. So I'm like, you're a Russian spy, and that's all I know. And then I've got 3 what I call bonus kids, and those are from my husband's previous marriage. One of those kids had a traumatic brain injury, so he's permanently disabled, I only mention that because it's something that adds dimension to the complications of parenthood.
I have a daughter with special needs, so I definitely relate.
Okay, yeah, so it's different,
Yeah.
There is no moving out at 20 or 21, Then I have my daughter who is 5 and her name is Nola and she's a spitfire.
Nola and my Sigourney is a spitfire as well. She's the baby, 5 years old, totally relate. She's grown with all these, teenagers in the house. So wow, awesome. Okay.
So you have your teenagers. Is she kind of an only? Because Nola's kind of an only.
Yes. Yeah.
But only with siblings, which is kind of cool. But
it is, but it's different. And they act so differently from other 5-year-olds, don't they?
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but she is wild. Strong. I don't know if she's wild, but she's strong. She's a force to be reckoned with. So I don't know if that's the only thing. Sorry.
It might be the only thing. It might be the only girl who's also the baby. I don't know. But Sigourney's name means conqueror, and she is super strong. She's got all of that in her.
You're like,
But you know what? They are going to be amazing, amazing, strong women. So
that's right. Yeah. They better be.
They will be, for sure. We are going to make sure that happens.
Yeah, they've got a force for good.
Yeah. So you've got the whole gamut, just like I've got the whole gamut. So you have a lot of wisdom to share with women about raising kids.
Yes.
So can you tell me, what is a maverick? What's your definition of that in relation to kids?
Well, the term maverick, actually, the historical meaning of it is his name was Samuel E. Maverick in Texas, and he was a rancher, and he refused to brand his cows. So he was known as this kind of rebel that was doing what everybody else was, but he's like, I'm going to do it in the way that I want to, that works. And so his cattle, if anybody found an unbranded cow, it was Mavericks.
Ah.
And, and there's a lot of analogies, but I love the idea of our kids going out being unbranded, as in unpermanently marked, being critical thinkers and not following the herd. I
Mm-hmm.
love the term appearing to conform. They
Oh, I love
they
that.
thrive in society, but they haven't drank the Kool-Aid.
That is so beautiful. I've got to write that down. Appearing to conform. I've homeschooled my kids. My oldest is now a senior in high school, and I stopped homeschooling him when he started high school, but my
Wow.
youngers, I do. And it's funny because so many people will say, "Oh, your kids must be sheltered." They make this assumption that my children are sheltered because they're homeschooled.
Mm.
And actually, I feel the opposite. I feel like, well, your kid's in school, 8 hours a day or whatever it is. My kid's out in the world. My kid's not
Yeah.
sheltered. But I love that idea of appearing to conform because obviously, as a homeschooler, and I'm totally not your average homeschooler. I'm a working mom and, we've got a different kind of life than a lot of other homeschoolers. But that aspect of nonconformity and just homeschooling in and of itself, but then the appearing to conform because you do need some aspects of that to be productive, right? And to function in this world. I love that.
Yeah, and
It's
it's a
awesome.
great way to explain respecting authority.
Yes, yes.
You don't have to become blood brothers or whatever to do what somebody tells you to do. You said okay, this is a person that was put in a leadership position over me for a reason. I'm going to appear to conform. I'm going to do what they need me to do. I'm going to be an advocate for them or whatever. But that doesn't mean you're mentally all in. You're not fully given in. You're just
Right.
appearing to be part of the team as much as you can be.
Right. Out of respect. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And if it's not your jam, you respectfully leave.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of going back to what a Maverick is work ethic, grit, empathy. And we've kind of tied on the curiosity as the 4 pillars because 3 would make it lopsided. Because work ethic is if you are in a situation, say workplace environment or a team sport or something like that, and something unethical is going on, you are going to have to step out. And you know what? You're going to take a hit for that financially, socially, however it is. And you're going to have the work ethic to work your way out of it. And you're also going to have the grit because you're going to be rejected socially. You stand up in a crowd and you say, I'm going to call BS. This isn't working. This isn't right. The emperor's got no clothes on. I'm not participating. There's going to be a social backlash for sure. And anybody who's posted anything on Facebook that isn't popular, a part of the popular agenda, knows exactly what I'm talking about. But you've got to have the grit to go, that's okay. This is what I believe. I'm going to be respectful. And then empathy is to see things happening to other people and say, no way, this is wrong. I can feel how they would feel, and I know what to do. I need to take action for them. And then curiosity is what ties it all together. Because if you're not curious and you're not engaged and you're not questioning, you're not going to notice any of this stuff.
True.
You're just going to kind of go with the flow and you don't care and you're doing what you're doing. You're in your own world. If you're not like, wow, I wonder why that's happening. I wonder what happened if this happened. I mean, if you're not curious, you're not really a valuable asset to whatever group you're with, to be honest.
Right. Not at all. You're not engaged. And I mean, we all know curiosity is actually a component of intelligence. And it is so important to be able to learn, to be able to experience, grow, mature. You have to be curious about your world. You have to be curious about everything. And we do shut that down in kids a lot. And I don't even think we realize how much curiosity gets shut down and not encouraging the questions and, socially with kids and being shamed for having, questions or not knowing. So tell me about, I mean, I know we can't cover all of it in one podcast, but how do parents go about creating this maverick child? And how does helicopter parenting fit into that?
Okay. So
Big question. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is good. Okay. Let's start with the helicopter parenting.
Okay.
So the root of the helicopter parenting is fear. And where this fear is coming from is the media. We have got to understand that we are essentially in the dark ages as far as our information goes. We have so much information out there. We don't know what's true. So we might as well not have any.
Right. Right.
And what we do glom onto and what we do attach to, and we have no idea if that's right or wrong. So we're being taken down these paths and like fully engaging in it and changing our lives around it, around false information. So one of the biggest myths that I want to dispel right now is this is the safest time in the United States since the 1960s. And I'm not just talking about for kids, I'm talking about adults. Violent crime, everything is down to the level it was when everybody was out running around in the streets. It makes it sound like there's a mob. No, but like when kids were able to play in the streets, play baseball, ride their bikes wherever, and just be home by the time the streetlights came on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. And again, like I just said, my daughter was out, she's unlocking the door and going out. I face this fear 100%, but I keep it in check with the facts. And these facts are coming from the FBI
Wow.
on their statistics of youth crimes. And our youth right now are amazing. Everybody's, dogging on the millennials and how bad things are going. Absolutely a complete myth. Teen pregnancy is down, drug use is down. The opioid, I can talk. The opioid epidemic is the adults. It's the baby boomers and the older parents and people. It's not the kids.
Very interesting. I definitely didn't know that about the overall crime rate, but I certainly believe that in terms of kids being in danger. And just as you talked about that, I know we talked about before when we were just chatting that I really struggle with the aspect of feeling like societally, I'm supposed to be this kind of parent. I'm supposed to be really concerned about certain things. And I feel like if I'm not, it makes me a bad, neglectful parent. But internally, I go back to remembering when I was a child and at 8 years old, we would go out like with my friends and neighbors and we'd go biking like miles away from home and come back, at nighttime or not nighttime, but we always had to, just like you said, then before the streetlights came on, we didn't have a cell phone. We had no way of connecting with our parents. Nobody was concerned. We'd go, into the woods and play in the creek all day. And it wasn't considered neglect. It was considered childhood.
Yes.
And yet now, I remember I went to this function and my kids, my two boys were like maybe 5 and 4 or 6. And one of them, my sons, they picked up like a plastic knife, and they were like sword fighting with it. And I kind of, I was talking to a lot of people and I kind of glanced at them. I wasn't concerned. And then this other mother is like, your boys have knives, like you better do something about it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, guys, you need to put those knives. But it's like everyone's freaking out like, oh my gosh, they have knives. They could hurt. I'm like, inside, I'm thinking it's a freaking plastic knife. They're not going to do much damage with a plastic knife. But it's that whole kind of, this, I don't know what it is, terror or something. Like we always have to make sure, we're protecting them, and as if the world is ready to just swallow them up. And on one level, maybe it is, but I definitely have that pull with, I'm not as concerned. And I know so many other moms seem to be more. I wonder about that. So, wow.
Okay. Well, you know what? That is the perfect example of why women need to really keep this in check, because you were working, right?
Right.
You were doing your work, what you were passionate about. You were fulfilling your passion. And another person said, oh, don't forget, you're a mother. You need to go back and mollycoddle your kids and start helicoptering.
I definitely felt her judgment. I mean, she was definitely judging me because my 2 little boys were playing with these plastic knives.
Right. And you know what it is? It's a detriment to women and their success. Because we are micromanaging these kids literally until they're in their mid-20s. And you talk to anybody who does like the college counseling and placement and stuff like that will agree 100% that this doesn't stop once they fly the nest. It continues on. And having the kids, we have to walk them to the bus stop. We have to walk them back. They can't be left alone at home for a microsecond without the fear of our kids being taken away. Nothing makes it more difficult for a woman to pursue her dreams, than that. Not only do we have to have careers, be amazing at home, we have to be full-time nannies to these kids in a way that completely suppresses their intelligence.
Right. It damages them. And speaking of intelligence, I loved what you were saying on your podcast about the messages that we send to our children when we micromanage or helicopter mom them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think one of the references, it might have been that I've done so many podcasts, but
right.
I talk a lot. One epiphany for me was when my daughter was little and she was at the playground, and I tried to give her as much freedom as possible. And I knew that there was a chance that she could fall and get hurt. And I'm like, that's life. If she falls while she's small, when she's bigger, she'll have a better understanding of physics, essentially.
Right.
They're learning physics. And I noticed that the closer I got to her to make sure she was okay, the more dangerous it got, because she would literally free fall. She knew I was nearby and she would do stupid stuff. I'm not telling her she's stupid, but as a mom, I'm like, you just jumped off the highest rung and I am not even paying attention at me.
Right.
Kids assume that you will catch them if you are right there helicoptering. You take a step back and their brains get engaged and they go, oh, I am also responsible for my well-being. I am also responsible for my survival. And if you are right there with your hands, it means I don't believe that you have the ability to do this. And when I say you're there with your hands, that could be hovering over homework, hovering over, how they ride their bike, or be careful, be careful, be careful. Be careful is not useful.
Right.
It really isn't. And
It's
especially to girls, it's not useful because girls are more likely to be told not to do something again if they end up in the emergency room than boys.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So boys, it's like, well, boys will be boys. They broke their arm.
And girls are like, don't do that anymore.
Wow. That's a great point.
Just be a little bit more intellectual about it and say, there's gravel on the sidewalk, and let their brains engage and decide how they're going to navigate that. If they go right for it, you know what? Lessons are learned. It's icy. We're running and it's icy.
So just point out what the conditions are, what's going on, and let them figure out how to navigate that or protect themselves.
Yeah. Just you trust that they have the cognition to make an appropriate risk. They may not, according to your standards. But
it's funny. Yeah, I was just talking to my daughter about that. I don't remember what we were doing. We were taking a walk, and I don't even remember the conversation we were having, but I was telling her something about, I might have said, well, you live and you learn. And she was like, well, what does that mean? And I said, well, you do things, and if they don't work out, or if they hurt you, or if they're bad, you learn not to do it again. And she was like, she was kind of saying she didn't understand, or she didn't think that was true. And so I gave her some examples in her life of things that she did and then won't do again because something happened. And she's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I always give the example, a kid falls on their face in the playground and the parents are like, oh, he's okay. I'm like, when was the last time you fell on your face? Like that, and it's because we did fall when we were younger, and, we do whatever we can to not to now. But it's also like not telling them what they should feel. So I'm a big believer in just asking questions at that point. Are you okay? I saw you fall, but not reflecting your emotions on them. And that's also, if you're saying, be careful, you're reflecting your fear onto
your
them.
Anxiety. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that can be stifling and just make them insecure.
And just like people rise to your expectations, kids rise to your expectations. And when you send the message, you can't do this by yourself. I can't trust you with a little plastic knife. You can't be trusted to take care of yourself. Then they learn, oh, I can't do that. I'm not trustworthy in that way.
The knife thing is interesting to me because my daughter for Christmas last year got a knife for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
And I did that.
Did you tell anybody?
Oh, yeah. I talk about it on the podcast all the time. And people are like, really? Wow. And my dad got her a knife, which is like a legit sharp knife. They're small. Yeah. And then the knife I got her I mean, he just happened to get her one as well. You can tell how I was raised. But
Mhm.
it's a French knife and it's rounded at the end and it's sharp.
Yeah.
It's easy to open and it's easy to lock. And she cut herself. She was whittling some stuff and she has a little art table. She was whittling and she caught her thumb and cut it pretty good.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, yep, that's a cut. And she screamed and ran into the bathroom. And I was like, oh, great. That's the end of that. We
Mhm.
got it bandaged up and she went right back at it.
Awesome.
She opens all the boxes that comes in. She uses the knife all the time and never cuts herself.
I love that. And so my question, and I've had this question for so long, where did we start fearing things like that and believing that we can't let our children have some autonomy in that area and that if we do that, we're bad parents? Where in the world did this whole thing start?
That's a good question. I don't really know. I was a latchkey kid. So starting in the second grade, we rode the bus home and there was a key underneath the porch and we let ourselves in. And our parents came home at like 8 o'clock at night. I mean, that was like
Wow.
from 3 to 8. We were in the house watching Fresh Prince of Bel Air and eating a lot of cereal
Wow.
with like massive amounts of sugar that like stuck in the bottom of the bowl. But,
Sure.
I don't know what the shift was. I think I have a really strong belief that has to do with the media and the onset of social media and 24-hour news.
Yeah. And
Because
maybe moving more towards, child-centered parenting or
Mhm.
families, which is a good thing, but somewhere I think we just really got out of whack. And it creates so much anxiety for mothers because the expectation we have for ourselves as mothers is so high that we can't possibly meet it 24/7. And that's why so many moms are, on medication and,
Yep.
feeling just like they don't have this balance, like they can't do it all. Mothers nowadays are so much more depressed and anxious than they were, 50 years ago.
Literally not enjoying the dream that they had. I mean, potentially, I
Yeah.
didn't dream of having kids, but I mean, some people, that's like their life's goal is to
Yeah.
be a mother and have fun doing this and have their careers potentially and to have it all. And then the reality is it's actually not that much fun with this amount of pressure
Yeah, it's just too much pressure.
without the tools too.
Yeah, so I want to talk about some of those tools. I think we've kind of identified the
Yeah.
problem.
We're like, we go on forever.
We can talk about this all day because I think you and I are kind of on the same place with this. But let's talk about some tools for moms that are out there listening, going, okay, this kind of makes sense to me, and maybe I do see how I'm maybe micromanaging and helicoptering my child a little bit too much. What is free range parenting? Can you give our moms some tips and tools for maybe starting out a little bit on this process?
Well, I mean, I think that the best way to describe free range parenting is the antithesis of helicopter parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really letting your kids do things that are age appropriate for their skill levels. Staying home alone. Some kids can stay home alone earlier than others. There's just different capabilities. So it's not a blanket thing for all of them, or you trust one to play at the park and the other one is legit gonna do something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
We all know our kids.
Right.
But I think the biggest thing that you can do, and I'm totally stealing this from a lady named Lenora Skenazy. And
Mm-hmm.
Lenora is the woman who coined the phrase free range
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote an article in 2008. I think she was working for a newspaper and a couple of magazines in New York City. Why I let my 8-year-old ride the subway by himself.
I love that article. I remember reading it, and my son was 6 years old, and I was like, yes, this makes so much sense because I feel like I'm crazy that everyone feels like I have to be, this helicopter mom. And amazing, great article. Yeah.
Yeah. So the world blew up. She literally was on every news channel you can imagine, being
Mm-hmm.
dubbed the worst mother in America.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's now kind of on this campaign for the rights of parents to be able to let their kids do what they need to do to grow into
Do what their kids are capable of doing.
Yeah, and mentally sound adults. So they have a group called Let's Grow, and they in Utah just passed some really cool or changed some laws, and it was the state's definition of what neglect was. So letting your kid walk to the bus stop at 11 years old is not neglect, that kind of stuff. So they do some really great stuff. But one of the things that Lenora suggests is having your kids write out some things that they would like to do on their own, that their moms and dads wouldn't let them do. I want to ride around the block on my bike. And she gives some examples of one kid was like, I want to take a shower by myself. So there's some things that it's custom to your home and the limitations you've put on your kids, but see what they want to do. And just take small steps, because once you take that small step of them having that freedom, it's difficult to go back. You're like, yeah, they're perfectly capable. Right. And I can say personally, I really challenge myself to do this, because I totally fall into the trap that somebody's going to swipe my daughter off the street and take her away forever. And the statistics just aren't there that actually happens that way.
Actually, the statistics show that your children are more in danger in your own home, because kids get injured and sexually abused and even kidnapped by family members more often than anybody else.
Thank you, Zoe. Thank you. It's so true. It's so true. The boogeyman is a distraction from the fact that this stuff is happening in your own home.
Yes, that is
so
true.
Like, just send them outside and assess your own situation.
Well, I think I heard this first. Dr. Dobson talked about this, is when you have a child, the whole point and the whole process is a process for parents of continually, every day, letting go a little bit by a little bit from the day they are born. And so if you think about parenting in that way, your job as a parent is to continually let go a little bit by a little bit so that they will be functioning, independent, confident adults. Then what you have to recognize is that anything you do for your child that they can do for themselves is hurting them. Now, obviously, you love them, and, if you want to comfort them and you want to give them something or make something for them, or, you have family traditions where you do things for them, that's one thing. But anything that you do for your children that they can do for themselves is actually hurting them. And if you think about it that way, then you can think of, okay, you're kind of always assessing what can they do for themselves? What is the maturity level today versus last week or last year or last month?
Yeah, completely. And like I said, if everybody kind of takes some micro steps, and as women, give other women a break.
Yes.
We are all doing the best that we can, and we know more about our own situation than other people do. And if our kids are acting up and being horrible in a store, and we buy a toy for them to get them to chill out, you know what? It's probably because heads will fly publicly. if you know what I mean? It's just like, if that's what they feel like they need to do to solve that problem right now, fine. Let them do that. It's okay. You don't know what's going on behind the scene. I'm a huge, huge fan for women. We have these women's march and all these kinds of things. And I think we really just need to look internally and see what we can do to support other moms and not judge.
Yes, look at our circle. It is so true. And I did this speech. It was on the Women's History Month. And I was talking about that exact concept, that we are harder on each other. Men tend to give us a much bigger break than we give ourselves as women. And we have to support ourselves. We can't judge. And I think a lot of that judgment comes from our own insecurities and our own need to kind of build ourselves up, like, oh, well, I'm better. I'm a better mom because I don't let my kid, pick up a plastic knife. But we have to look at other moms and, just like you said, recognize they're doing the best they can and they know their kid. We cannot judge what they're doing. And you know what? Even if that mom is failing, which we all, that's why I do my Superwoman win and Superwoman fails, because we all fail every week, every day. We also have amazing wins. But if that mom is failing, instead of judging and criticizing her, go help her. Give her a hand.
Yeah, totally. I want to say a few other tips for getting into the mode of kind of a free range parent. Yeah. And everybody has to remember, it's not all in or all out, whatever. It's just what is working for you. But I challenge everybody to step back and let their kids struggle.
Oh, yes.
It's an easy thing to say, but you have to really catch yourself and just keep your mouth shut.
So hard.
Yeah, legit, just keep your mouth shut and watch. And if you're worried about something, you can sit them down before and say, I want to let you know that there's a few things here, whatever. Unless, it's your kids are going to get hurt. And I challenge you to actually let them get hurt. It's really hard to do, but it changes their relationship with themselves and their sense of responsibility.
I love that. And when you say your kids are going to get hurt, I know a lot of moms might be like, how could you let your child get hurt? But when I watch things with my kids, I assess, okay, can they get hurt or are they going to get injured? There's big injuries that you definitely want to avoid. And then there's little ones that they're going to learn from. And yeah, will a little cut on the finger hurt? It will, but think of the lessons that they will learn from it if that happens. And is it life damaging? Is it going to really injure them? That's a whole different thing. But even small emotional hurts need to happen in order to grow.
And even things, this is one of my pet peeves, only because my husband and I argue about it, but the coats. Everybody's like, we're walking 3 feet, so we've got to get all bundled up. And I'm like, you know what? Like, you're taking hours you're sucking the life out of me right now. You do not need a coat to go from the car to the house, which takes literally 5 seconds. If they say they're too hot, they're too hot. If they say they're cold, and I know there's some kids that have a hard time managing that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like this obsessive controlling of them. And yeah, there's a guy named Mike Males, and he's the head researcher of a group called youthfacts.org.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Lenora Skenazy are the two people that have just twisted my brain and changed the way I operate in so many levels. But Mike Males is the one who kind of taught me about the adultist agenda. Like I was talking about the millennials. That was one of the things that, not necessarily about the codes, but he said about giving kids autonomy is it's really just controlling them rather than doing what's best for them. He has seen through his research, and he does work with the FBI and various other places, that things like curfews only increase youth problems. And it is actually just trying to segregate the youth from the adults.
You mean like county-wide curfews or like parental curfews?
County-wide curfews.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Things that are put into place like that, where you need to let kids have some autonomy for sure. And you know what? Can we start with letting them decide if they're hot?
I just love that you said that, because I must be like a low-key, or maybe not so low-key, free-range parent, because I have this issue too. I'm not really crazy about being overbearing about the coat jacket thing. I'll ask my kids, it's kind of cold. Do you want to wear a coat? You want to wear a jacket? And if they say no, I'm like, okay. And there's so many times that we'll be out and someone will be like, your child doesn't have a coat? There's no jacket. And I'm like, they didn't want it. And you know what? If they get really cold, they'll learn. They will. And next time they might put a coat on. And the other thing is I remember to tell people, you actually can't get the flu or the cold or sick from cold. It's a virus or a bacteria.
It actually increases your immune system to do cold exposure. It's what they do. And everybody's like, oh, Sweden and Northern European countries have it right with the kids. It's like, do you see what they do with the kids? They literally leave the babies in the buggies on the sidewalk while they go in and get coffee.
You're right, they do.
We are so far away from like Swedish, raising our kids in a Swedish way. It's like, or Norway or wherever So you were completely a free range parent.
I guess I am. I didn't even know that term, but I think I totally am. And I do get judgment. I feel it and I know that it's there. And I'm like, okay, I see you, but my kid's okay. Really, if he doesn't want to wear a jacket. And my 14-year-old son, I don't know why. The boy just must run hot, but he never wants to wear a jacket or a coat. and he's a Boy Scout, and he'll, go camping in, 40-degree weather. And it's like, okay, it's your choice. It's your body.
Well, they're literally running laps around us. I mean,
That's true. Yeah.
it's like us running a marathon in a parka. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Mhm. So true. But that's interesting because my 16-year-old does have a curfew. But, we definitely adjust it for whatever's going on with him. But I agree about the county-wide, or it's not county, whatever it is. There is a curfew in our state. I don't know if it's state or county, where kids who drive have to be home by 11 o'clock. They can't be out driving. I guess it's their first or second year, first 2 years of driving. But yeah.
I thought of another thing that's really great. I mean, I really do challenge people. We can put a link up to the type of knife that I was talking about. It's a French knife. And I challenge people to get their kids and teach them how to use a knife properly. And the other thing is to teach them how to start a fire.
Yes.
Get them out there. And we actually, I say we, like it's a collective thing. It's actually me because I'm a nerd this way. I kind of have this obsession with different ways to start a fire. So I have like the flint and steel. And I just bought my daughter. Yeah, like I bought it for my daughter, I bought it for myself. It's one of those like bows. I'm sure maybe the Boy Scouts have something to do with this or would do. And it's a bow and you wood rubs until it starts a fire.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So just different things to make it fun and teach them how to handle that. This is kind of a little bit far off, but I was raised around guns and my dad was a gunsmith. And when I was about 5 years old, he took my brother and I out and we shot a high power rifle. And anybody out there who has shot guns knows that a high power rifle is extremely physically challenging for an adult. It's scary.
The kickback, right?
Yes, it's huge. It's harsh. It's scary, even as an adult. We did that. There were guns all over the house. We had loaded guns in the house. Never once, and we were latchkey kids, never once were guns brought up as a let's get a gun out. There was never any danger of us touching guns.
You had a healthy respect for them.
Yes, just give kids a healthy respect. And that curiosity is where people get into trouble because they're like, ooh, it's like the forbidden fruit,
Yeah, that's a very.
And I just want to make a blanket because we're in America. If you have a gun, if you know somebody who has a gun, first of all, if your kid goes over to somebody else's house, you need to ask them if they have a gun. Your child should not be going into a home that has guns if your child doesn't have healthy respect for guns. And by healthy respect, I mean real life experience, not water guns, not BBs, like real guns. They've got to be able to understand the impact, or regardless of your feelings, do not let your kids go over to houses that have guns unless
danger.
Police officers, that kind of stuff.
I think the other thing, and the last thing I think I want to talk about is when we talk about the free range parenting, when we talk about giving kids freedom, I think another big one is asking your children what they think or their opinion. And a lot of times as parents, we want to tell them what they should think or how they should think. But we learn so much, and I've learned so much asking my kids, what do you think about that? What do you believe about that? And then we can have a conversation, because I do feel it's my job as a parent to, and I was just talking to my son about this because he probably said something like, you don't trust me, or you, and I said, no, I said, it is my job as a parent to direct you. It's not that I don't love who you are today. It's not that I don't accept who you are today. You're an awesome person. And my job is to direct you, the person you are. Yes, that is our job as parents, and I believe that firmly. But we also have to know what our kids believe and think, because they have thoughts of their own, and we often don't ask them their opinions about even big concepts or small ones.
Yep, I agree 100%. My favorite saying around this is no problems, only solutions. And if you can get to where there's actually, it's not a superiority thing. It's like, okay, we have a disagreement between us. You took off with a car without permission. Let's get to the root of this. Why did you do that? You wanted to go out with friends. I see you want to have more freedoms. You want to spend time with your friends. Okay. No judgment. I need to know where you're at. I need to know I have my car, whatever. If you can just treat them with mutual respect and just try and keep your emotions in check, which usually means taking time out.
Right. Covering your mouth.
Yeah. And
screaming on the inside.
Yeah, or like literally taking a period of time to do whatever it takes until your frontal lobe is fully intact again. Because if you are upset and angry, you are working in your primitive brain and it's fight or
True.
flight. And there is no way, like I was talking about having a toolbox of things to use, those forget it. You've got nothing.
Right. That's funny. My sister just texted me this morning and she she threatened her kids with her dog's poop. Long story. But they were fighting about something and she was taking her dog's poop to the vet, I guess to be like
Oh my gosh, she's
examined.
awesome.
Yeah. And I was like, way to go. Way to stoop to your kid's level. I was just kind of joking with her. But yeah, it's funny, the things that we definitely do when we are reactive. It's funny.
Well, here's one thing that I want to say, especially around teenagers is, and you know what? I don't know if any of your listeners are dealing with elderly parents as well. This applies from toddlers to elderly parents, is when you're trying to provide care and take care of somebody at a high level, you can't engage in a power struggle. The moment you get into a power struggle, and it'll happen, it's happening not by what they do, but how you feel.
Yes.
If you feel like I can't let them get away with this, I don't want to be treated this way, I can't let this go on, you are officially in a power struggle.
Right.
So, first of all, physically remove yourself, chill out, don't engage in the power struggle, then give them power where you can. If you can redirect the power, then give as many choices, not as many, but as often as you can, give choice. And recognize that you have a leader that you are raising, or when you're dealing with elderly parents or anybody else that you're caring for, this is a real human that is fighting for their right to be heard and have their place in the world and to belong. And they feel like they belong when they have a piece of power. It's their human right to have power over whatever it is. This is where like anorexia and this kind of stuff comes in, is when they have no power, and power will be found.
You're right. Absolutely
And
right.
if it's restricting their food or eating too much, or your child's doing something bizarre and you're like, what's going on? They're finding their power. If your elderly parent is just refusing to take their medication or do whatever, give them some power. I don't know. I used to take care of elderly people and watch that, but let them have a cocktail. If they want to have a cocktail, let your adult parent have a cocktail.
I think that's a great point. And I think a wonderful one to end on is just looking at your child or, anybody that you have care for through that lens of they are a human who wants to have autonomy and power and feel like they, have this place in the world. And it is our job to give that to them. So beautiful.
Yeah. And we don't own them.
We don't. Nope, we don't. We don't own them and we can't, make them into something they aren't. We have to love them for who they are and guide them, but only guide them. We don't own them.
100%.
Emily, thank you so much. I feel like some of it has been a rant, but I hope that our listeners have heard and identified and gotten a few tools where they can maybe start to look at this whole concept of free range parenting and especially raising a maverick. Who doesn't want to raise a maverick?
Well, it's funny because a lot of women think of Mavericks as bad kids and men think of it as the pilot in Top Gun.
Right. And I think of it as kind of the pilot in Top Gun.
Oh, but, good. Okay.
We want to raise independent kids. We just do. I think it's great for our kids and it's great for the world. So Emily, you have some programs going on?
Yeah. So I'm super, super stoked about my latest project, and that's an online course. It's called Young, Wild, and Safe. Nice. And it's a body safety course, which is a sex abuse prevention course for free range parents. So it's kind of like us parents who they want their kids to go out in the world as much as possible. So how do you keep them safe while they're out? So it's kind of a tricky thing. And it's throwing another term out there, it's sex positive. So it's keeping them with a healthy, wonderful view of sexuality while protecting them from, what can go wrong in that realm. And this is such a hard topic for people to talk about, and it's so important. And there's so much good work to do. Kids really are abused at a high level. They always have been. And
Mhm.
we can change this. And you can literally change the course of this by just a few conversations. It's phenomenal what knowing the anatomical names for the body, having kids know and be able to speak to you. And there's some tricks to this. People often get it wrong and their kids clam up on how to get them to speak to you about this stuff and not search Google for it. And this kind of taps into the pornography exposure and stuff like that. That is sexual abuse, 100%. Yeah. So one of the things that I do that I'm just so excited about is I use nature analogies and kind of these universal laws to explain complex topics. So one of the best examples is how to explain predators to really young kids. Like I was saying before, you could take them to the zoo or talk about the wild animals, the predators, and how they stalk their prey. They use mimicry, they stalk, they mimic. I'm losing all my words right now.
Camouflage.
Camouflage, yeah. They wait, and you just say, this is really important that you remember this. And then as they get older and they move out into the world, you can say, you know how we talked about predators in nature? Humans are predators as well. Well, they stalk, they mimic, they wait.
Or they can be, yeah.
Yeah. And exactly. Thank you. And they pretend like things that they're not. And then this also applies to the cyber world. So it gives parents a way to introduce really difficult conversations to littles that they can build on step by step in ways that they're comfortable.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's fun. Yeah.
I'm going to use that with my 5-year-old. We're going to have a trip to the zoo we've been planning. So that's perfect timing.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not a Debbie Downer. Nobody wants to talk about sex abuse prevention. So I try and make it as fun as possible, and laugh. There's really funny things that happen when you're teaching kids anatomically correct words and the things that come out in public. And I just try and make it lighthearted, fun, and informative.
That's great. That's beautiful. And I've taught my kids anatomically correct words from the beginning. We never use those fake words.
Yeah. And there's some tricks to it as well that a lot of people, they call the female parts vagina, and that's not right.
Okay.
We can go into that, but I don't know if that's another follow X. Do you want me to?
It's probably another one. So because the vagina is like the actual internal canal versus the labia, or is that what you're talking about?
Yes. And it's actually really important in regards for women and women's rights and girls as leaders, as we I'm about to go on a tangent. Focus, Emily. Okay,
so we might have to do another show about that. But
it's in regards to sex abuse prevention. It's really important that your kids understand pleasure and the autonomic responses, and all the names for their body. Because if it's unnamed, it's unmentionable. And for women, half of our anatomy is not spoken about. It's like calling the penis a urethra.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
And everybody's like, oh, it's not. It doesn't matter. I'm saying it does. You heard it from me.
I did. I heard it from you first, and I haven't thought about that. And I have labeled, those body parts for my daughter because she's curious. She's like, what's this?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's your clitoris. But I haven't thought about that because you're right. Even generally, I just call it the vagina. Interesting.
And
but it's not.
Kids will Google names. And the last thing you want your kids to do is go to Google before they go to you to find out what their body parts are and other things.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And I talk to my son about that all the time. When you ask other kids or you ask people who don't love you and know you, sometimes it's just asking the blind to lead the blind. They don't know what they're talking about. You come to me. I will give you the truth.
Yep.
I will tell you straight up whatever it is you want to know. You do not ask somebody else who doesn't know or you can't trust. So yeah. Wow. Emily, I think we're going to have you back on because we're going to have to talk about this sex positive program that you have and really about raising sex positive mavericks.
My brain is full of it right now. So yeah.
I'm sure. Well, thank you. And I'll put links in the show notes of how you can find Emily and get to her program. And thank you so much for being on the show today.
Zoe, you're so fun. And you're a closet free range parent. I kind of like that.
I just learned that about myself today. I am a low-key secret free range parent. Awesome. Thank you, Emily.
All right. Take care.
So that was a great conversation with Emily Goodreau. And as I said before, I think it was part rant, part helpful information and some tips. And I hope that you guys got something beneficial out of it. And hit me up on social media. Are you a helicopter parent? Are you a free range parent? I learned a little bit about myself today. I guess I am a bit of a free range parent. But yay, let's continue that conversation. And I look forward to having Emily back on the show so we can talk about sex positive parenting. Great topic, another great topic. So now for health tip. Your mind and your body are intimately connected, and that is why I have a health tip segment. No comparisons, just focus on you. So my health tip today, simple, quick, laugh, laugh, laugh. We know that laughing is healthy for us, and I just have to remind you, laughing is healthy. Have you laughed today? Have you laughed today? Laughing not only eases stress, it promotes social bonding, it lowers your blood pressure, and it also boosts your immune system. So figure out how to bring some kind of humor into your busy life, whether it's through friends, whether it's through a new TV show, a podcast that's hilarious, whatever it is. And the other little tip, my mom, and I swear I thought my mom was a little bit crazy, and maybe she was, but she really taught me the benefit of laughing. And she talked about, hey, when you're feeling bad, start laughing, start smiling. And she would model this for me. I feel like I've said this somewhere before, maybe on another podcast, but she really taught me how important and healthy laughing is for your mental health, not just your physical health. So have you laughed today? Try to make a pact with yourself that you're going to laugh at least a couple times today. So thank you for listening to the Dr. Zoe Show. Please tune in every Tuesday. My shows go up in the morning, and you guys can connect with me on social media at the handle Dr. Zoe Shaw. You can text me at 38470. You can text the word join to 38470 to connect with me. Get on my mailing list. I send out some good encouragement, and I look forward to chatting with you wonderful ladies on social media throughout the week. Have a super week.
You've been listening to The Dr. Zoe Show, redefining your superwoman, with your host, Dr. Zoe Shaw. Don't forget to sign up for her monthly newsletters to get encouragement, tips, and skills for keeping your mind in the superwoman game. Connect with her now at www.drzoeshaw.com. Tell your friends and subscribe to her podcast on iTunes. Join us next time for another edition of The Dr. Zoe Show.